This is Star Wars sound design.
Most directors spend a lot of time with their cameramen and the actors. I just take the same amount of time and spend it also with the sound designer. I knew the sound was part of the foundation of what the movie was going to be. So everything had to have been figured out way ahead of time.
Hello there, my name is Jordan Reynolds. I'm a sound engineer and composer. Join me as we listen, enjoy, and recreate the iconic sounds that we've all grown up with from that galaxy far, far away. We'll listen to the genius of Ben Burtt and others who followed after him as we hear how they brought these iconic sounds to life. I'll then do my best to recreate them myself. Some sounds will be easier than others, and I'm sure I won't get them all 100%, but I'm sure the journey will be fun and a worthwhile one. So I hope that you'll join me in my love of Star Wars sound design. This is our very first Spaceships episode, so why not start it off with one of the most recognizable sounds in all of Star Wars, the TIE Fighter. I'd like to start things off by reading an excerpt from J.W. Rinzler's excellent book, Sounds of Star Wars. Originally, George Lucas had seen a British documentary on PBS about the Battle of Stalingrad in World War II, and had noted that the firing sound of some of the strange Nazi rockets was quite weird and interesting. Lucas mentioned that it might make a great sound for the laser gun, and Burtt managed to find a copy of the documentary. He then set about finding sources that could emulate the sound. Luckily, at 20th Century Fox Studios, Don Hall let Burtt go through the Fox sound library, where he found recordings of some elephants that had been done for an Errol Flynn movie, The Roots of Heaven, from 1958. In that film, elephants stampeded and bellowed with an almost shrieking sound. The same sounds were used for the dinosaurs in Journey to the Center of the Earth. After making a copy of that recording, Burtt realized that when he slowed it down and stretched it out, he ended up with a sound similar to the rocket one in the PBS documentary. But it wasn't quite right, so Burtt took the sound of the elephant and mixed it with pass-bys he'd recorded of cars during a rainstorm as they sped through the puddles in front of a motel where he was staying. A pass-by is when a vehicle comes toward the viewer, passes by, and then speeds away. The car would come by, and you heard this car plowing through the water, Burtt says. I took that sound, still thinking that I was making a laser of some kind. The key aha moment occurred during temp track auditions as shots started coming in from ILM of the gunport sequence. When we did temp mixes and played it back for the crew at Parkway, I would take advantage of the fresh audience because the editors hadn't heard anything with sound, Burtt explains. The gunport sequence came along with the first trial shots of actual TIEs in motion. There was pressure to get some temporary sound in for the screening, so I grabbed a random set of sounds I liked and cut in a different one for each of the TIE fighters that zoomed by, continues Burtt. One sound was the elephant shriek. The next one was a slowed down World War II warbird, the next a processed jet or rocket. After the screening was over, the only talk in the room was about the elephant swoosh sound. That was the greatest sound for those ships that you could have possibly picked, they said. I'd really put it in because I had no other alternative, but it got great reviews, so naturally it became the sound of the TIE fighters. In World War II, the super dive bombers had an artificially created siren wail created by air ducts, explains Joe Johnston, visual effects art director. They didn't serve any purpose except to create this noise, which would terrify people. It was intended that the TIE would achieve the same effect. There we have it. Genius, almost by accident, as we will hear many times throughout these episodes. So I want to dive into our own design of this sound, but before we do, I want to quickly mention the Star Wars sound design Slack. This is a community on Slack for anyone who wants to come and talk Star Wars in any way you like. You can join for free from the link in the show notes and just come and hang out and chat about new episodes or sound ideas for future episodes, or even just exciting new upcoming Star Wars shows or movies or whatever it might be. So come and join the Star Wars sound design Slack. All right, let's walk through building a TIE fighter. The main two elements that we have here are as we heard the elephant call and the cars driving by in the rain to make that sound for the ties in motion. So let's start off by hearing the original sound first. Awesome. So the first thing that I had to do was dive into some elephant calls and try and find one that worked decently well for the sound of the tie. This was before I realized that there was a very specific elephant call that Bert used, and that's the one that is instantly recognizable. I got there eventually, but here is what I started with. You can hear elements of what we need in there. They're all pretty terrifying as is, but not quite that iconic sound. So I tried to combine a few different ones. I played with the overall pitches of them as well. These things usually do well when you pitch them down a bit. So here is that combined sound, just trying to create an overall shape that might sound like an engine pass by. I especially like that one exhale that comes at the end there. I make use of that one later on to have sort of an exhaust sound happening. So okay, not bad, but not recognizable really as that iconic TIE Fighter sound, so no problem yet, we're getting there. The next thing I found was the cars on the pavement sound. I had one that I took from an effects library, but you can quickly hear how sometimes those just aren't the best quality, so let's have a listen to that. It has the feel that we need, but just not enough and not good enough, to be honest. Progress report so far, we have a mediocre elephant engine sound with a mediocre sound of the car pass by. So we're getting there. Here's the two of them put together. All right, I'll be honest, pretty meh to say the least. It's a good start, but we're not there yet. So I said, okay, either I won't be able to get exactly the thing that he made, or there's an important element that I'm missing. So I did some more research, and of course, wouldn't you know it, there is a very important detail I missed. So this is where I found about that clip that we mentioned earlier. Once you hear this clip, which is from that Errol Flynn movie, The Roots of Heaven from 1958, you'll agree that it's almost good enough just on its own. It's so great. This is from a clip where some huge lizards, dinosaurs maybe, I'm not exactly sure, but they're having a pretty epic battle. You can see that video on my Instagram, by the way, so be sure to check that out at Star Wars Sound Design on Instagram. Pretty fun and funny to watch, but let's just have a listen to it here. Isn't that nuts? It's the exact sound we need. So this is where the fun begins. It was super easy to start making it sound very close once I found this key element. Here is a combination of what I had before with a few elements of what I guess we'll call the dino tie, that very specific sample. All right, now we're pretty close. I took that element and pitched it slightly up and panned it around so you can make it sound like they're coming from all around us. Let's check that out. So fun, and I would say pretty passable. Here is the original sound again. And then here is the one that we've created. And here's that little almost breaking element that I thought was cool. And I'm going to throw that at the end. So just a little exhale, a kind of psh, from the elephant. Let's have a listen. And then I placed it a bit better in the combo so that you can hear just a little bit of a hint of it at the end there. So once again, our awesome Thai pass-bys. Now, you'll remember that I said I didn't like my car driving by sounds too much. Well, I got super lucky with that, and there was a big storm one day, so I ran to get my gear and just literally opened the door of my place and put my ambisonic microphone, that's a microphone that records in 3D, a Rode NTSF-1 for those that care, and I just stood by my open door and recorded. The rain was heavy enough that it made a nice little hydroplane for the cars right in front of the house. So check out what that sounded like. So definitely a lot better quality on those. Next, I'm just going to play my last group of just messing around with these new car pass-bys and layering in elements of that dyno tie and just seeing what I can end up with. A lot of messing around. I also use a plugin, a piece of software that we'll be using a lot in the future, which is called Morph. Now, what Morph does is instead of having two sounds play together, it actually meshes them together in really interesting ways. It tries to interleave the two sounds together. So we'll get more into that when we see it again in future episodes. But I did use it a bit here so you can hear a little bit of that. And you can see me do all of this on my Patreon bonus making of episodes. So those are on my Patreon if you're curious. Those are literally just videos of me as I'm playing around in my software, creating these things. No talking, just me working away. So here we go. Let's have a listen to my experimenting and morph and all of these different elements wrapping back together. Tried to put a fun little stutter in there and see how that sounded as well. So we've done, I would say, a pretty cool Thai sound. Can't wait to hear what you all think about it and what you think of this first episode of Star Wars sound design. If there's anything you think I can improve, the only way I know is by hearing from all of you, so feel free to let me know. Of course, if you want to see some of the behind-the-scenes pictures and videos, like that movie Ben Burt used to get that main element, then be sure to check out my Instagram. Let's have a final side-by-side. Here is the original sound, followed closely by the new and probably not improved but still awesome version we've ended up with. Not bad, not bad. That just about wraps it up for today's episode of Star Wars Sound Design. So much of what goes into these episodes is the process of going out to collect the sounds. I get to go out into our world and hunt these things down, whether it be props or vehicles or natural phenomena, finding and buying the real gear and props that Ben Burt and his team actually used. Now, in the examples where I can't go out and record obscure animals, some props and gear that are just too difficult to find, I have to resort to buying sound libraries. I can manipulate them just like Ben did so many years ago. So if you think this project is something worthwhile and you'd like to help me on my journey of collecting sounds, patreon.com/Star Wars Sound Design is where you can do that. It's only $3 and you get access to a bunch of extra episodes every season. I just recently uploaded a few to get things going, so you have some fun stuff to start the season with. That also includes the very special planet episodes, hearing what it might sound like to be on planets like Hoth or Tatooine or Camino or whatever it might be. And then finally, one of the most exciting things about the Patreon is that you get access to my making of videos, like I mentioned before. So for almost every episode, I'll be uploading my making of process. We walked through my process in this episode, but if you want to actually watch me do it step by step, then you can see that at patreon.com/Star Wars Sound Design. The first planet episode, Tatooine, is up and waiting for you all to check out. Well, I hope you enjoyed this first Spaceships episode of Star Wars Sound Design. We'll have one of these every season, so send in your suggestions for other spaceships we can design or other methods I could have used in this episode. Have you heard things in your life that make interesting sounds? Send them to me and we'll see if we can use them for future episodes. Send me an email at starwarssounddesign@gmail.com or a voice memo at speakpipe.com/Star Wars Sound Design. Next week we have our droids episode where we'll be talking about probe droid. Can't wait. Until next time, may the Force be with you.